Good morning and welcome. We're at the start of another fresh day of trade. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. I'm Harsh Saita and with me is Ankita Saxena. In this show, we take you through all that's happening in global markets, or all that has already happened in global markets rather, and then we take you through domestic news and specific stocks. So a whole host of things to discuss in today's show. Stay tuned, of course, but we'll start off with the first piece. Ankita, talk to us about how US and Europe markets have fared yesterday.
Good morning to you, Harsh, and good morning to everyone. Now, everyone knows that the Fed minutes were released yesterday and the commentary was rather hawkish. And, on the back of that, US markets largely closed lower, post, of course, the Fed minutes that displayed a hawkish stance. Now, FOMC minutes stated that inflation remained well above the Fed's 2% target, and tight labor market contributed to the continuing upward pressure on wages and prices. Now, the minutes showed that the participants favored a 50 pips increase, noting that a larger increase would more quickly bring the target range close to the levels they believe would achieve a significant restrictive stance. Now, Dow Jones lost 84 points, S&P 500 fell 0.1%, largely flat, and Nasdaq Composite was bucking the trend, rose 0.1%, largely flat but in the green. Now, Alibaba, Papa John's, Wayfair and Bath & Body Works are all set to release their Q3 earnings as of today. So these are the events that you need to watch out for in the US market. European market closed lower after, of course, the Fed released its minutes with a rather hawkish commentary. FTSE was down more than 0.5%, the Stock 600 was down 0.3%, and CSE was largely flat, down 0.1% in trade. That was the roundup of the US and the European markets. Harsh, where is the crude at today?
Well, yes, I'll take a cue from what you spoke about, Ankita, and essentially what most presidents at the Fed are suggesting is that there is still some way to go and there is some headroom to go. So one thing is, of course, having the flexibility to raise, and the other thing is having the determination to raise, and my sense is at the moment both of those are matching up, and that means that they want demand to come off, and that will happen if they continue to raise above that 5% mark. We've not seen a 5% return on a 10-year US bond yield in a long time now, and if they raise above that, then of course demand will come down, and that's exactly what's impacting crude. Crude has slipped quite sharply on the back of that. Crude is down nearly 3+% yesterday. Of course, recovering us a wee bit today, but otherwise crude is largely lower. We're looking at Brent at $81 a barrel. Yesterday we were well above that $84 a barrel mark, and oil also, or rather WTI oil, is below that $75 a barrel. It's at $74 a barrel. So keep an eye out on both those moving pieces. Of course, the China reopening and Russia cutting supply will of course kick in from the 1st of March. So you'll have to keep an eye out on that as well. But at the moment, crude absolutely in the dumps, if I can call it, down to 2 to 3% versus yesterday.
All right, Harsh, and we'll quickly take you through all the events that will take place as of today. Now, it's the last day to buy these shares to be eligible for the dividend. Amritanjan Healthcare, Apollo Hospitals, BEML, CESC Insecticides, NLC India, NMDC, ONGC, PI Industries, and Precision Wires. We also have Tamil Nadu Mercantile Bank and Uniparts India. Last day to buy the shares to be eligible for dividends. And also in other events to watch out for, today is 23rd of February and today marks a year to the Russia-Ukraine conflict that's been going on. And also for G20 summit, we have the finance minister and the central bank government meet in Bengaluru as of today. So these are the events that we need to watch out for today.
Well, all of that on our radar, but let's quickly switch over to global news and of course the news of the moment. The Federal Reserve at their most recent meeting indicated that there are signs inflation is actually coming off, but not enough to counter the need for more interest rate increases, according to the meeting minutes, of course. While the January, or rather 31st to 1st Feb meeting concluded with a smaller rate hike than most of those implemented since early 2022, officials stressed that their concern over inflation is high. Inflation remained well above the Fed's 2% target It's at around 6.4, and that's what really the minutes summarized.
And we'll stick to the US markets. Nvidia's stock rose more than 8% in extended trading after the company reported slightly higher revenues and net income than Wall Street estimated. Now, data center revenue increased 11% on an annual basis. The company said the growth was because US cloud service providers bought more products. Nvidia's CEO said that AI is at an inflection point, pushing businesses of sizes to buy Nvidia's chip to develop machine learning software.
Well, let's stick with companies. Wells Fargo laid off hundreds of mortgage bankers this week as part of a sweeping round of cuts triggered by the bank's recent strategic shift. The layoffs included some top producers, including a few bankers who surpassed the $100 million in loan volumes mark last year. Some of the bankers who lost their jobs recently attended an internal sales conference for high achievers as well.
And the stare down between Russia and US is intensifying even as the war rages on in Ukraine and is now completing 1 year. US President Joe Biden, during his visit to Poland, went on to hail the efforts of NATO member countries, calling their commitment rock solid. Vowing that NATO was more united than ever, Biden has pledged the United States and its allies would have Ukraine's back as the war enters its second year. The fresh war of words come after Putin cautioned the United States of stoking the war and turning it into a global conflict. Let's listen in to what Joe Biden had to say.
This war is never a necessity. It's a tragedy. President Putin chose this war. Every day the war continues is his choice. He could end the war with a word. It's simple. If Russia stopped invading Ukraine, it would end the war. If Ukraine stopped defending itself against Russia, it would be the end of Ukraine. Get the Finlandization of NATO. Instead, he got the NATOization of Finland and Sweden. He thought NATO would fracture and divide. Instead, NATO is more united and more unified than ever before.
Well, that was, of course, on the geopolitical side. We'll quickly move on. Bill Gates has bought out 3.8% stake in Dutch drinks giant Heineken. Although the billionaire founder of Microsoft has previously said he was not a big beer drinker. The filing by the Netherlands Financial Markets Authority said the shares were purchased on the 17th of February. Gates purchased the shares from Mexico's FEMSA, which is selling out of the brewing company.
And Pakistan is grappling with its worst economic crisis and seems like China is offering a helping hand. As per reports, Pakistan Finance Minister Ishaq Dar has announced that China has offered a $700 million loan to Pakistan. The finance minister said, and I quote, "Formalities have been completed and the Board of China Development Bank has approved the facility of $700 million for Pakistan, and the amount is expected to be received by the State Bank of Pakistan very soon."
Right, with that we'll slip into a very short break. More on the domestic. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. We'll quickly go straight to the news for the hearing impaired.
बजट पर केंद्रित वेबिनार का आज पहला दिन। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी हरित विकास थीम पर हितधारकों के साथ करेंगे चर्चा। बजट में घोषित योजनाओं को अमल में लाने के लिए समन्वय स्थापित करने पर होगा फोकस। 11 मार्च तक होंगे वेबिनार। दिल्ली एमसीडी सदन की कार्रवाई में जबरदस्त हंगामा। स्थायी समिति के चुनाव में आम आदमी पार्टी और बीजेपी पार्षदों के बीच हुई हाथापाई। बीजेपी ने आप पार्षदों पर लगाया वोट की गोपनीयता भंग करने का आरोप। आज कर्नाटक दौरे पर गृह मंत्री अमित शाह बेल्लारी में करेंगे विजय संकल्प समावेशी रैली। बेंगलुरु में आयोजित 65 वर्षों के परिदृश्य में भारतीय राजनीति और प्रधानमंत्री मोदी के नेतृत्व में बदलाव विषय पर आयोजित संगोष्ठी में भी लेंगे भाग। बेंगलुरु में G20 के वित्त उप मंत्रियों और केंद्रीय बैंकों के उप प्रमुखों की बैठक का दूसरा दिन। वहीं खजुराहो में संस्कृति से जुड़े 4 महत्वपूर्ण विषयों पर चर्चाओं का दौर जारी। संगीत नाटक एकेडमी फेलोशिप और पुरस्कार समारोह आज। वर्ष 2019, 2020 और 2021 के लिए राष्ट्रपति द्रौपदी मुर्मू प्रदान करेंगी पुरस्कार। इजरायली सेना ने वेस्ट बैंक में किया हमला। नबलस पर छापे के दौरान 4 नागरिकों सहित 11 फिलिस्तीनियों की मौत, 100 से अधिक लोगों के घायल होने की खबर। और T20 महिला वर्ल्ड कप का पहला सेमीफाइनल आज। केप टाउन में डिफेंडिंग चैंपियन ऑस्ट्रेलिया से भिड़ेगी टीम इंडिया। और आइए अब खबरों पर विस्तार से नजर डालते हैं। बजट पर केंद्रित वेबिनार का आज पहला दिन है। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी आज ग्रीन ग्रोथ यानी हरित विकास पर आयोजित होने वाले एक वेबिनार को संबोधित करेंगे। वेबिनार का उद्देश्य है कि केंद्रीय बजट में की गई घोषणाओं को अमल में लाने के लिए सभी हितधारकों को एक साथ लाया जाए और उनमें समन्वय स्थापित किया जाए। लिहाजा 11 मार्च तक ऐसे 12 वेबिनार आयोजित होंगे। इसी कड़ी में आज इसका पहला दिन है। वेबिनार में हरित विकास के ऊर्जा और गैर ऊर्जा दोनों पर केंद्रित 6 सत्र होंगे। विद्युत मंत्रालय इस वेबिनार के आयोजन में प्रमुख भूमिका निभा रहा है। हरित विकास केंद्रीय बजट 2023 से 24 की 7 शीर्ष प्राथमिकताओं में से एक है, जो देश में हरित औद्योगिक और आर्थिक परिवर्तन, पर्यावरण के अनुकूल कृषि और सतत ऊर्जा से जुड़ा है। ये बड़ी संख्या में हरित रोजगार भी पैदा करेगा। बजट में विभिन्न क्षेत्रों और मंत्रालयों के लिए कई परियोजनाओं और पहलों की परिकल्पना की गई है।
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. Now let's move on to an ET Now interview. This is the right time for India to attract investment amid a global diversification of supply chains and manufacturing, according to David Malpass, president of the World Bank. He also said India faced challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic but has recovered strongly and can achieve 8% growth through a stronger private sector, land and agricultural reforms, and of course ensuring credit gets to small enterprises, among of course other factors. He also said the World Bank is working on debt restructuring for those countries that have unsustainable levels of debt, and added that the world should do more about climate change, particularly in the area of adaptation. Malpass is in India to attend a meeting of the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors.
And on to another ET Now report. Tata Motors has begun discussions with sovereign wealth funds and private equity investors to sell a significant minority stake in the EV division. Now, the potential buyers include UAE-based Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and Mubadala Investment Company. Now, Saudi Arabia headquartered Public Investment Fund, Singapore's Temasek Holdings, as well as KKR and General Atlantic. Now, Tata Motor plans to raise up to $1 billion through the equity stake sale and will use the bulk of proceeds to retire a part of its outstanding debt. Now, a small portion of the funds will be infused as primary equity in the EV business.
Well, and Vedanta Group has scrapped its plans to sell the shuttered Sterlite copper plant in Tamil Nadu a year after it invited bids for selling the plant. The company is keen to get the plant up and running instead. Sunil Dugal, Group CEO of Vedanta Limited, told The Economic Times He said that the company received good response from buyers to the expressions of interest they had put out for the plant, but there is a pressure building up on them not to sell the plant and instead make it operational. He added that the government also wants to support the operation depending on the legal case, which will be heard later this month.
And well, the National Stock Exchange has extended the trading hours for investment trade derivatives till 5 p.m. Now, the new timing is coming into effect on February 23rd, which is of course today. And until now, the trading window for these derivatives closed at 3:30 p.m. as we know. Now, we ran a Twitter poll asking if the timing should also be extended for the equities. Now, surprisingly, the results are almost evenly split. Now, a little more than half of participants are opposed to an increase in trading time, while about 45% voters want more time to trade in the equities. Now, some argue that the Indian market is now deeply linked with global markets, and an increase in trading time will offer a bigger window to react to global developments. And others argue that over trading leads to, of course, losses and also has an adverse effect on the mental health of a trader. Now, we spoke to a couple of experts on the extended trading hours, and this is what they had to say.
I had published a report almost 7-8 years ago on some of the cost benefit analysis of the changes which had been done in previous 2-3 years. And unfortunately, I had come to a conclusion that not much has really impacted and there was not of much use to the market, the changes which were being done. So I feel that, this whole process of do something and review it, that is totally missing in the Indian markets. We have a one-way traffic of, constantly in a year, almost 500 circulars are issued by SEBI and exchanges, and 500 software changes are to be made on the system and on the fly. So I think that, this is entirely, somebody thinks about it and keeps on issuing circulars, and then you just fall in line. So I feel that if some justification, some study is precedes these kind of changes, then people will appreciate it better, accept it better, and the targeted gains can actually be achieved.
Now things have changed and we have to change with the time. And I believe that the investor base also has increased rapidly. During last 3 years, the investor base has increased to almost double, and now we have 22 crore UCC already in place, and things are changing very fast. We need to give opportunity to people who cannot participate during the normal market hours, which is the office hours. There are many people who would like to join after the working hours, and the current volatility in the market also supports the reason for extending the market hours. There is a lot of volatility happening after 3:30 in the afternoon, and Indian investors are helpless. They are not being able to, hedge their position. Again, one more factor that would go is that price determination.
Right, some variety of perspective coming through on that front. But quickly moving on, IT major Wipro moved to cut salaries offers, or rather salary offers to freshers awaiting onboarding by almost 50% is not really going down well with employee unions, and it goes ahead to show that the global macroeconomic uncertainties will be a challenge for tech companies going forward. In fact, in a response to ET Now's query, the company has responded saying that, or rather I quote, "In light of the changing macro environment and as a result of our business needs, we had to adjust our onboarding plans." Let me bring in Anisha Jain, who of course tracks the IT sector, to tell us exactly what's happening with the hiring-firing cycle among tech companies.
Well, yes, as per the latest reports, Wipro is asking its freshers to take a pay cut even before joining. While they were offered 6.5 lakh rupees in their offer letters, the company is now asking them to take a pay cut of almost 50% and join perhaps at 3.5 lakh rupee package. Now, this is what we are picking up from reports, and just to give you the context, This was perhaps the class of 2021-2022, wherein the freshers were given offer letters back in 2021 itself, though the date of joining was not really told to them. They were later asked to take into a training project which was called Velocity, and they were told that if they clear this particular training, their pay packages will be 6.5 lakh rupees per annum, which is higher than the entry packages of rest of the industry as well. However, again, the date of joining was not mentioned to them. Early reports have been suggesting that Wipro has been delaying the onboarding of a lot of freshers, and that's because the global economic conditions have turned for the worse. And now the company has gone ahead and told these freshers that we can onboard you immediately, but that would mean that you'll have to take a pay cut of around 50% coming in and come in at a pay package of 3.5 lakh rupees versus 6.5 lakh rupees that they were initially offered. Now, this is an option given to them. They can either join immediately at that 3.5 lakh rupee mark, or wait by for the joining letter, and perhaps at a later date they'll get that 6.5 lakh rupee package. But this has actually come as a shock to a lot of these freshers, and even the other student organizations have been calling it unethical and unjustified. We reached out to Wipro to understand as to what's happening with respect to this particular allegation, and Wipro told us that our talent is the most valuable asset. We are committed to creating an environment where our all current and future employees are able to build successful careers and realize their goals. In light of the changing macro environment and as a result of our business needs, we had to adjust our onboarding plans. As we work to honor all outstanding offers made, this current offer creates an immediate opportunity for candidates to start their career, build their expertise and acquire new skills, both through the interesting and innovating work that we are doing and the extensive learning and development programs. They go on to say that at Wipro, we are committed to the growth and success of all our employees and look forward to welcoming the new recent group of graduates. But overall, it's come in as a very big disappointment to the entire student community, and perhaps this is the first instance in the industry that the freshers have been asked to take a pay cut of over 50% even before they joined.
And well, we'll move on from that news. Now, here's the latest on retirement pensions. Now, EPFO or Employee Provident Fund subscribers can now opt for a higher pension. Now, the central government's pension agency has issued a fresh set of instructions for employees who had not opted for pension contributions at a higher wage than the wage ceiling that was kept at 15,000 rupees per month. Now, this is in compliance with the November order of the Supreme Court. Now, so if you are still wondering how to go about increasing that pension amount, or if you're still clueless about how your pension amount is decided, my colleague Kavita Thaplyal is here to simplify it for all of us.
All right, so EPFO has issued a circular to all the employees who have not opted for pension contribution at a higher wage. What happens is the current limit of your salary for your pension is 15,000, out of which 8.33% is contributed to your employee pension scheme. Currently, what happens is even if your salary is increased, your PF deposit amount clearly doesn't go up. And also because EPFO has issued a circular now on 20th Feb, it is following a Supreme Court order where the order says that employees should be getting the higher share of their pension, and 8.33 is the reduction will be based on your basic salary. We will get into the working of this particular higher pension mathematics that you will be getting. So currently what you can see is the contribution that you're doing towards your PF. Now 3.67 goes to your EPF. Okay, out of this 8.33% will be contributed towards your employee pension scheme. 12% contribution goes from an employee's end, and 12% contribution actually goes from the employer's end also. Now, because 8.33 is going from your end for EPS, let's get down to the breakdown. Let's get the breakdown of this particular maths and calculations. So let's assume that your basic monthly payment that you get is rupees 25,000. Further, if we go on and employee contribution to EPF, out of this 25,000 will clearly be 3,000 rupees. As you can see, this is the employee's contribution, and even the employer will be contributing so much. Now the employee's contribution to EPF, out of which 3.67, if we cut it down, 9.917, which is 917 rupees 50 paisa will be the EPF amount. Coming down to the 8.33% of this particular amount, it comes down to 2,082 rupees 50 paisa. Now that is the amount which will be contributed towards your employee pension scheme. What you have to understand that employers' contribution to EPS is capped at 8.33% of 15,000, which is only 1,249 rupees 50 paisa, which in the current situation where we are seeing inflation going up so high is definitely not sufficient. We will also tell you that how this amount will be calculated. If you are someone who is opting for a higher pension, so 15,000, which now will be your basic salary, higher basic salary in this case, into the number of service of years, divided by the actual life expectancy, which in this case is 70 years. This is the formula that's taken in for your pension calculation under EPFO. Now, how can you actually apply for this higher pension? There is a particular process. If you do it offline, then the EPS member, they have to visit the nearest EPFO office. There are certain amount of documents which you have to collect, and you need to submit all the relevant documents, application forms, also consent forms to the EPFO office. Not only that, the disclaimer and declaration option has to be selected in joint option, which means the employee and the employer's joint form should be submitted, and all the necessary adjustments should be a part of this PF. And in case of transfer of funds for exempted provident fund trust to pension fund, the trustee will have to submit an undertaking. So in a nutshell, this is the kind of procedure that you have to follow. In the end, you will be informed, you will be given a URL after your application submission, and according to that you will be able to figure out the kind of higher pension amount that you can get.
Right. It's going to be extremely important as to how you plan your finances. Of course, Kavita broke that down very, very well for us. But with that, we'll slip into a very short break. More on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET now. It's that time of the show where we go stock specific, and we have Lisa with us, who generally takes us through all the stocks that ought to be in news today. So Lisa, talk to us about which stocks to look out for.
Well, Harsh, absolutely. Good morning to all. So these are the stocks that will be in investors' radar for today. Starting with Mahindra CI, they reported their earnings and the revenue from operations. It was up 35% on year-on-year basis and stood at 2,247 crore. The PAT from continuing operation was up 153%. However, the overall, they reported a loss of 658 crore versus a profit of 80 crore on year-on-year basis, and that was owing to the discontinued operation, and they have recommended a final dividend of 2.5 per share. Moving on to Lemon Tree Hotels, the company has signed a license agreement for a 47-room property in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, and the hotel is expected to be operational from December onwards. Orient Cement, Adani Power Maharashtra has asked Orient Cement not to pursue the land pack for setting up a cement grinding unit, and as Adani Power has been unable to get the MIDC clearances, and the timeline as agreed as per the MOU has also been crossed. So the company has accepted the position of Adani Power, and the said MOU has been terminated as of now. Please note that the company had entered into a non-binding MOU with Adani Power Maharashtra. Moving on to HG Infra, they have been declared as a L1 bidder by Rail Vikas Nigam Limited, and the project cost is around 535 crore, bid cost is around 466 crore, and the construction period is around 30 months. Sarda Energy has also been declared as a successful bidder for coal mine operations with South Eastern coal fields. They have issued an LOA, and that is on a revenue sharing basis of 4.5% basis. And lastly, Tata Steel has acquired further shares in Neelachal Ispat Nigam Limited, and the company has subscribed around 4.68 crore equity shares aggregating to around 300 crore. So these are the stocks that will be in focus today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Lisa. But you also have all the brokerage notes that came in this morning. Take us through what the brokerages are saying.
Surely. Starting with Credit Suisse on delivery, they have maintained an outperform on the stock at a target price of 500 per share, and they say that the sector is passing through a high water mark, and the long-term growth that remains intact for the company. Integration challenges for spot-on acquisition, that also has been easing, and it's closer to end, and the stabilization of network parameters are taking place, and they see early signs of recovery and also improving operating performance. Moving on to TVS Motors, JP Morgan has maintained an overweight on the stock at a target price of 1,330 per share. The overstance is driven by the expectation of stronger earnings versus its peers, and that supports its premium valuations. Also, they added that electrification is viewed as a risk for the legacy IC OEMs, and they have raised the valuation multiple for TVS Motors at 27 times, as they believe that TVS could potentially cross the 20% market share by the end of this year. And lastly, CLSA has maintained a buy on GAIL at a target price of 125 per share. They have raised the EPS and target, and the buy entails a 31% upside. They say that they see a big trigger ahead, as they expect a big tariff hike soon, as GAIL has proposed a 70% hike in gas transmission tariff, and that is after accommodating the disagreements of regulators. So these are on brokerage radar.
Well, thanks so much for all of those details, Lisa. As always, you take us through all those stocks every morning. But we'll quickly move on. Another stock which will be in the news will be Z. The NCLT has admitted an insolvency petition filed by IndusInd Bank against Z Entertainment. Let's go across to Ankur, who has more details for us.
Yes, Z Entertainment has been dragged to NCLT by IndusInd Bank, and now NCLT has admitted the petition of the lender. Now the claim is that as per the debt service agreement in which IndusInd Bank had given a loan to City Networks, Z Entertainment was a guarantor, and according to that agreement, some amount needs to be kept in the account as per the guarantee, which Z Entertainment failed to do so since 2019, and therefore a petition was filed at NCLT by the lender, not only claiming defaults from City Networks but also from Z Entertainment. Now this is important because once a petition is filed, there will be due proceedings which will be conducted by the interim resolution professional, which has been appointed by NCLT, and all other creditors also can make their claims. Now, in a response to the queries which we had sent to Z Entertainment, Puneet Goenka, the CEO of the company, has said that there will be no delay in the merger with Sony Entertainment, and all the due courses, all the due steps which needs to be taken will be taken for the merger, and this is guided by the legal advice which the company is receiving. Now it seems like that this battle may go to higher courts, and we need to wait and see whether or not there is any impact on merger or not.
And moving on from Z, my colleague Aishwarya Patil spoke to Nissan Joseph, CEO Metro Brands, who says that he is seeing a huge shift in the footwear market, which is becoming more organized on back of more regulations coming in and increase in the GST rates. Now, he remains optimistic that Metro Brands can expand to a total of 300 plus cities in the near future. Listen in to what he had to say.
What we're seeing is that they are upgrading their what they're buying, right? I think one thing that COVID taught a lot of people is I don't want a lot of stuff, but I want some good stuff. If I'm going to buy stuff, I'm going to buy some good stuff. So we're definitely seeing that in the consumer behavior. But there's also a huge shift going from the unorganized sector to the organized sector. You know, the unorganized sector in India is roughly about 70% in the footwear market. We're seeing that shift happening as GST rates have increased, as there's been more and more regulation come in. It makes unorganized sector a little bit harder to compete with. What we're seeing is the consumer is not resistive when they see value. So we're not looking at it as premium product for the sake of premiumization. We're seeing it more as creating products that have value, but at a much higher price point. And the consumer is not shifting away from that. As far as basket size goes, we continue to see improvements in the number of units that a customer buys when they visit our stores. That's driven by category growth. That's also category growth both in footwear. So because we're selling more athletic shoes, more casual shoes, so that category growth creates basket size increases, but also from our accessory business that continues to stay quite robust.
In terms of store count, what is the count right now at? And what's your outlook for this year? Is it going to be aggressive expansion? How is it? What does it look like?
So we reported in Q3 that we opened the highest number of stores in the history of Metro Brands. We opened up 46 new stores net, and that takes us for the annual total so far of 96 stores. Today we're at roughly about 720 stores. We guided the street that we would open 260 stores from when we went public back in 2021 for the first 3 years. So we're definitely on track to hit that number.
Right, that was of course Metro Brands speaking about their expansion plans as well. But quickly moving on, a massive winter storm hits California. Over 1,400 flights are cancelled and more than 2,000 flights have been delayed. Strong winter storm makes its way through the western and central states of the country. Meanwhile, power supply has also been disrupted. And Mercedes-Benz has partnered with Google to develop branded navigation for its new operating system as the car maker seeks more control over technology in their vehicles. This system will equip Mercedes-Benz cars with Google traffic information and automatic rerouting, and of course enable drivers to watch YouTube on the car's entertainment system when the car is parked or in level 3 autonomous driving mode.
And India and China for the first time held diplomatic talks in Beijing on the standoff along the line of control. Now, India insisted that disagreement of the frontline troops alone will help restore normalcy in bilateral ties. And James Anderson overhauls Australian captain Pat Cummins to become #1 in Test bowler in the ICC ranking.
Right, but with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of Market Cafe. The market will, of course, take the action